How's everyone doing? We just want to bring your attention back to the center of the stage.
Is everybody back? Everybody's back. Everybody's there. All right.
Perfect.
All right, ready?
Okay, hello. Hi. Thank you for spending time with us this afternoon. We are Group 1, and we are going to be walking you through our Rising Up solution, how to bring frog to life across Reprise. Before we get started, one minor request. Unless you are bursting at the seams, can we please hold questions until the end? All right, so let's get into this. Here's who is in the room. Hi, I'm Alexis. I'm on the strategy team, and I'm from the LA office.
Good afternoon, I'm Jose. I work on the paid search side, senior analyst with FDA and Merck Animal Health.
I'm Dan. I work on the SEO team, and I'm in the New York office.
I'm Kayla Bentham. I'm out of the LA office, and I'm a specialist on the paid social team.
Hi, Brianna Finelli, Associate Director of Paid Search and Retail Media here in the New York office.
Andra, Finance Operations out of New York.
All right, so let's get into your brief to us. So we heard Reprise is suffering from an identity crisis. Our values are not yet clearly defined, nor instilled in our people, process, or programs. We need to bring Frog to life in all cities across all functions, but how? That's what we're here to answer. But before we get into that, who can tell us what this is? Anyone?
Year-over-year revenue?
All right, all right.
That okay was the incorrect okay.
All right, this is actually a map of our Glassdoor reviews. So we've mapped it over the last couple years. As you can see, we were at our peak pre-merger. Prize and Civil Society were all separate gigs. A little bit of a downtrend. Started getting to our first official birthday. Then we get to where we bottomed out around the FCA loss. Not our greatest moment. So these are sort of the key tentpole moments of how we've mapped our sentiment, but we wanted to figure out what was really behind these dips and what people really thought. So we decided to find out. We conducted focus groups across 5 offices, 14 different times, with 72 individual employees. So we asked employees from the junior level all the way up to senior execs about what they felt about Reprise culture. Does it exist? Do you know what the frog values mean? What are we doing well, and what could be done better? And this is what they said.
I've seen work from other agencies, and Reprise's work is by far the best, newest, and coolest.
How is it that all we're doing is pitching and winning business, but it's our 3rd round of layoffs this year?
I love working here because Reprise has some of the biggest brands in the market and access to the latest tools.
I feel like a number. It feels like LA is a step sibling to New York.
Reprise is not treated as a partner, but as a vendor.
The people here are generally nice as shit.
So, as you can see, people like working together, but there are a few disparate opinions. And as we continued going through these focus groups, we found 2 sort of key themes from 2 different bodies. So we had people saying things like this junior employee. I think there could be more effort put into having the culture disseminated from the top, so everyone can feel included, but also part of the larger mission. So while juniors were saying this, we had some senior execs saying things like, we have a lot of junior managers who don't understand how important this culture stuff is to the business. So we had fingers pointing from the top down and from the bottom up, summarized here. I think Reprise is on the right track to culture, but it has to be embodied a little bit more and has to start from leadership. It takes team members to embody the culture and make it a reality. So participation should be encouraged. So all of these key themes of who's responsible, where is culture coming from, led us to our driving insight. So the perceived identity crisis is not due to a lack of understanding, but a lack of employee accountability. which leads to the opportunity for us to create a framework in which everyone shares the responsibility to build culture together. And Jim is going to talk us a little bit through.
We're going to talk a little bit about our employee journey. Everyone's employee journey is slightly different, but it should be consistent. We come in at the interview, we go through our onboarding, we hopefully have some performance evaluations, potentially get promoted, and we're really hoping no one dies at Reprise, so there should be some kind of exit. Really, fingers crossed, HR would not be happy with us. But it looks a little different. Some folks never even hear about our values in our interviews. They don't have consistent onboarding. Some people start midweek and don't know what's going on. Performance evaluations, we've heard people don't have them. Some people have them infrequently. What are we promoting around? Are we talking about our values during promotions? And then what does our exits look like? Currently our exits are trending downwards as we see from our Glassdoor reviews. People are not generally happy when they're leaving here. How do we address these things? Working with our talent teams to ask values-based questions in our interviews. Are the people we're bringing in sharing our value? Do they want to work somewhere where culture is really important? What does onboarding look like? Do we talk about Frog on your first day here? Performance evaluations. Are we just evaluating your KPIs? Are your values part of your KPIs? What does that look like? Promotion. How does what you're responsible for in culture change as you grow with Reprise? From a junior employee all the way to a senior executive. And then, again, no one should die here. So people are leaving, and what does that look like? Are we getting feedback from them around our values, and how are we using that information moving forward? So we did think about the framework quite a bit, and we realized we have 4 key stakeholders in how we drive culture at an organization like Reprise: employees, clubs, our talent resources, and our external partners. And Dan's going to take us through our employees.
So Reprise is our employees. Rob, you said yesterday during All Our Hands that the employees are the most valuable asset that we have. And we agree, but our employees need to take responsibility. So when we look at the senior executives, this was from one of our focus groups with the senior executives, said we shouldn't be afraid of delegating down because those are the people who will influence change. But we need to establish the purpose. The senior executives are the ones who have to set the vision. And so we need to set that vision, we need to distribute the executive sponsorship of certain aspects of that vision. We need to control the funding, so we can't just allow junior employees to spend all our money on beer. So we need to be smart about the different initiatives. And we need to disseminate that information down to the VPs and directors who can then execute that at the more tactical level. This was also from a focus group from the senior executives. Senior leadership doesn't have time to enforce the values. VPs and directors should be the bridge between employees and leadership. Senior executives get paid to think 2 to 5 years out for the business. The VPs and directors are the most senior folks on the day-to-day business, supporting the ADs and managers and the junior staff on what's the vision for your clients, not necessarily the vision for Reprise. And so what they can do is facilitate the application of Frog and the values set by the senior leadership to their individual teams. So whether it's a team out in LA or a team in Detroit or a team that has resources in both New York and Detroit, they're the ones who are customizing these values to their teams. One of the ways we're going to do that is through a value workshop, which we'll talk about a little later in the deck. They also need to be the communication line between senior executives and teams. So we saw some of that finger pointing before, where senior executives are saying junior people don't know what's going on, junior folks are saying I need more from the senior folks. The VPs and directors are that bridge. They can ladder up and they can ladder back down. From another focus group, we heard sometimes it's good to stand back and let teams connect on their own. So we do want to give people the responsibility and autonomy to drive culture in the way that they see fit. And so ADs and managers really on the ground level help guide some of the junior employees on how to do that. So in their one-on-ones, they're bringing up values and talking to them. Here, this is what you need to think about when you apply your values on a day-to-day basis. They activate and reinforce those values within the everyday work and all the tasks that they assign to the junior employees. And then they ladder up concerns that come from the junior employees to the senior executives so they can get addressed on a broader scale. And then finally, from a focus group, we heard, I love the people at Reprise, but think management could benefit from listening to the requests of individuals lower than them. Our junior staff from our focus groups is actually very happy here. They really love Reprise, but they want to be heard. But obviously, it's on them to voice their concerns. Rob, you alluded to this yesterday. If you are complaining about recycling, join the culture club and get active. And that's what the responsibility of the junior employees is. You're going to change the culture. You represent about 50% of our entire staff force. So you can, by brute force, make the culture what you want it to, what you want it to be. Because let's be real, senior executives, it's easier to sort of say, let's follow what you want to do, than push back on ideas that come up from the junior staff. So I'm going to pass it to Brianna, who's going to talk a little bit about how clubs fit into this equation.
Yes. We have a lot of great clubs here, and we talk about them all the time, all of these great initiatives that we've got. Global town halls, local town halls. We're talking about 3 main initiatives that we have that have become rather large in the past few years. And that's the Culture Club, We Rise, and Rise Up. We know that these clubs and initiatives all play a very big role in helping to disseminate the culture because they bring so many people from different levels and departments together for one common goal. And that's the only place that this really happens at this agency, and we need to make the most of it. So we've identified these 3 kind of charges that we are giving to all of these clubs in order to push the culture forward. And that's sharing transferable learnings, promoting the value of the initiative, but also Reprise values at the same time, and making participation in these initiatives the norm at Reprise. How do we do that? So we have transferable learnings. It's not going to be one size fits all. Every initiative is going to look different than another. Some may be a little bit more exclusive than others, and some may be larger. There might just be more buy-in, thinking of the Culture Club. But by sharing learnings around events, participation, how you're tracking to make sure that you're successful, how you've gotten more people in the door, we can make sure that every club at least is armed with what it needs in order to be successful. Thinking about promoting the value of the organization as well as the values, I can't think of a better example than We Rise. Joe, we've been working really hard to kind of get this back off the ground to be what it is, and we have to start with telling employees what the value is for you, and I think this mission statement really does embody what that is, because if you told me that I could walk into a room and feel inspired and realize my individual power, purpose, and value, that's not just something personal that I'm taking with me, that's how I can be fearless, real, on, great in my everyday life and my work. And that's telling me, Reprise values in addition to the value that spending my time here will bring. And making participation the norm. It should be weird if we've got employees that aren't going to events and aren't taking part in initiatives. It should be the norm that we're going to these events that the Culture Club is putting on, that you're applying to be part of Rise Up, that you're attending webinars that We Rise is hosting in the 3rd floor boardroom, because everybody should be buying in, and that's the culture that we need to facilitate. And it's not just on clubs. We have great talent resources that we are not leaning on enough in order to distribute this culture the way that it needs to. So Anjum was alluding to a lot of that in the employee journey and all of these touch points that every employee, regardless of level, kind of experiences at any point in their career. So we've identified HR, talent acquisition, and learning and development as having these key roles in the employee journey. It's very simple. For human resources, we need to have the coverage and support across our offices reviewed. In some cases, we've got Reprise employees laddering up to initiative in UMHR. That means that concerns are getting escalated to the wrong people, and we're not correcting a Reprise issue, we're correcting an office-centric issue, and we're also not giving those employees the Reprise resources that they need to be successful and feel safe in their working environment. And we need to incorporate fraud into our performance reviews, merits, and promotions. We should encourage employees to talk about how they've been fearless, how they've been real in their everyday job responsibilities, and that should count for something at the end of the day. For talent acquisition, we'd like to standardize all of our values-based questions across all of our interviews. So we're asking every employee before they come in, what does it mean to you to be fearless? What does it mean to you to be great? Before they walk through this door. And then we're charging them with the expectation that you are real and you are on when you walk in here. And that's what we do at Reprise. And for learning and development, it's Reprise exclusive training, so we can ensure that every Reprise employee, regardless of where they are or what level they are given the same access to the same tools and know exactly what they need to do to succeed. And also incorporate values and learning plans into our orientation and onboarding. So from day one, you need to be told what the values are and be told how people live them. Whether you're featuring the clubs or you're talking about the ways that all of the experience maps that we'll talk a little bit about later, how all of that comes to life in your employee journey is of the utmost importance. finally, we're going to touch on some of our external partners, and I will pass it to Jose to walk you through that.
My colleagues explained it perfectly, and I feel like putting more investment to our people is the right thing to do. But collaborating with our external partners, well, that's the missing piece of this entire puzzle. As we look at the structure, we look at IPG, we look at our sister agencies, we also look at external partners. Well, from an IPG perspective, there's this perception that corporate entities, just newsletter and corporate information. Well, we need to change that. They need to be open architecture. We need to understand that that's a resource, that's a support. There's level of employee engagement that we can tap into via events or multiple things as well. From a sister agency, we get this perception that the second thought, the Reprise is the second thought. Well, we need to change that as well. We need to let our employees know that we're empowered. Reprise does have a seat at the table. They do have to understand the bigger picture, that we are collaborating among sister agencies. From an external perspective, we need to push our partners a little bit more. We need to challenge them. They come to our office for office visits. They pitch us their decks, and also provide happy hours. Well, let's take that a bit further. There's opportunity for training and development on-site visits or awards. Let's push Bing. Let's make sure that our work is being represented well, and we bring home many Bing awards and other awards that other partners do have as well. As we look at this setup here, I want you to take a moment and understand that this here's a recap. This is the pillars that have the most influence across our organization. And by influence, we have to hold our employees accountable. And Brianna sort of mentioned it well. We have to have this buy-in. And Dan sort of touched on it earlier. We have to hold all of our employees accountable. And this is what that accountability looks like across levels, where everyone's engaged, everyone has this participation. There isn't a sense of silo, but there's a sense of culture. Now everyone is pushing culture, everyone's pushing this information, and we can take what we have to a different level. So how do we do that?
Okay, so we've sort of outlined 4 actionable pillars that will help Reprise build culture. We're going to take you through each one, but I'm going to start with redefine. So moving forward, we need to empower our teams to redefine our values. So from the onset, there's been some confusion about the values. We began with the new Reprise launch, and it felt as though the values were an afterthought. The Frog Awards, huge moment in New York, not as great elsewhere. There were technical issues, people not being able to access feeds, and that really did nothing to push the values forward. The leadership retreat, so the values were discussed in Miami, and they more or less stayed in Miami. We never really heard any further communication about what they meant or how it really applies to our day-to-day. So, to remedy that, we've come up with a 3-step process. So, first, senior exec kickoff. So, at the onset, senior exec's responsibility is to align on our framework and identify what should be communicated moving forward. From there, a management kickoff. So VPs and directors will then receive this information and further distill it outward through the teams. And then we get to team kickoffs. So VPs and directors again work together to facilitate workshops with their teams to really nail down what Frog means and what it means here. And all that's tied together with a common agenda, which is to communicate the Reprise purpose, define the values, and make sure we're sharing responsibility. So, here's our proposal. We chatted through a little bit how that'll work. We've outlined a cute little budget, we can talk about that. And why it works, again, it helps us all get on the same page and work together in building that culture.
And moving forward, we would also like to rethink our all-hands meetings and our leadership access. So in the past, our all-hands meetings have been disconnected. We've seen issues getting dialed into the call across LA, Detroit, Chicago, essentially every office that isn't New York. On top of that, the all-hands tend to be very, very New York-centric. Personally from LA, I know there's been a lot of times in the past where we'll be sitting in the room and a lot of the content that's being spoken is New York focused, and a lot of people in the LA room are kind of just like, why are we here? Why are we wasting our time? Like, what's the point? What value does this bring to me? So, moving forward, and we did see some of this implemented yesterday, which is a great start. So, especially with this AV setup. Yesterday I was in the cafe, and they spent about 2 hours going over the setup through each office, and that really provided a great value as there were no disconnection that happened from the offices. And on top of that, the videos were played, all the images that were shown were clearly streamed to all of the other offices, and I felt like yesterday's all hands was very engaging from office to office. And so moving forward, we'd also like to start with a national update, which is pertaining to all of the offices, whether it's new business, whether it's new experience maps that are rolling it out, whatever the case may be, this section applies to all offices on the call. And then from there, we'd like to do an East Coast update. So what's cool and new in New York, what's going on here. We'd also like to highlight the West Coast and the Central Coast. A lot of the times we hear what's going on in New York, but we don't always hear what's going on in Detroit, what's going on in Chicago, what's going on in LA. And then this is a really, really great opportunity for all of our offices to come together as well, because we're always preaching that we're one big team, but in these all hands, it doesn't always seem like this. So moving forward, we want to bridge that gap. And we want to just bring all of our employees together, really focusing on our values. And so moving forward again with the presentations, in the past we've seen them and they've been great, but sometimes they just kind of feel like a time filler. So moving forward, we want to highlight different presentations across the offices. So New York can see what's going on in LA or Detroit and vice versa. And this allows us to see what's going on in other offices and really inspire us. So if you see a team that's potentially in the same vertical as you and they're applying for an award and you think that what they did is really, really cool, you can reach out to that team and kind of bring their learnings back to the office. So we're having that cross collaboration. And then again, in the past, since a lot of these all hands have been New York centric, I know in LA we started doing our own personal all hands where we focus only on LA centric things. So we meet the team, we talk about what's new, what's going on, and so we think that this would be a great opportunity for each office to hone in on what's specific to them after we've all come together. So once we do all of the national updates, each office can come and address the questions. So we're not sitting there in LA listening to New York's questions about why their paper towels aren't working, how they don't have healthy snacks, where's the music, because in LA none of that's applicable and it tends to be a waste of time. So this doesn't cost anything for us, which is great, but it is a great opportunity for us to have that cross collaboration and really hone in on that one team, one dream value that we're trying to get across to all of our offices. And again, this comes back to us honing in on fraud, because again, we can have that cross collaboration and we can see what the other offices are bringing to the table, and we can just keep the ideas flowing. And then you may have noticed that in the second round, we got rid of the Ask Rob Anything scenario. From our focus groups, we had received feedback that there were some complaints where their questions weren't always being answered. Some of the questions that were being answered just felt forced, or again, were very New York centric, regarding the air conditioning or the gym or whatever the case may be. So moving forward, what we would love to see happen is that we have an AMA with leadership predefined. And we would like to see this happen every month. So employees would get a notification about 2 weeks before the panel, and then everyone would dial in on a live Skype, and then people can just type in their questions as it's happening. And then it's just, again, creating that cross collaboration, and then we're not forcing people to go and ask questions. And then this is a way for employees to really hone in on, their burning questions, like what do they want to know from upper leadership. And I'll pass it on to Andrew for reward.
So we want to evolve our reward, our values-based reward system. Everyone likes being rewarded for doing a good job, so we really want to hone in on that. We got this quote from one of our focus groups who actually got the name of the award ceremony wrong. The Froggy Awards were Prize's biggest blunder to date. We did talk a little bit about this earlier. They were very New York centric. It felt like a very sudden rollout. We had a lot of connectivity issues, so we kind of want to streamline that and propose quarterly Frog Awards. This would be an award that is still nominated, but also decided upon once you get the nominations in, deciding on who wins them. They would repeat the 4 categories 4 times a year, allow folks to have more participation, a higher chance of winning, $300 reward per value. And it would just promote this being an integral part of what we do here. We would also love to have biannual happy hours. We love the Thursday happy hours are back. I really love the wine, the beer. But we want to really celebrate our folks even more so. However, we know that offices are different. New York has a really large base. LA always has sunshine. We have a lot of snow. So we want to kind of leave it up to the offices how they do that. So we would just split the budget by head count and let offices decide what that looks like for them and what makes the most sense. I was like, where are you?
And our final pillar. So our final pillar is going to walk through how we update our roles to represent our values. We've been alluding to this the entire presentation. The experience maps, they don't tie our goals to our values. We took a really hard look at these because we think they could be a great tool for our employees, but we found some flaws with the initial rollout. The values are a bit of an afterthought. They come after the actual experiences, they're on the second page, and it really doesn't tell anybody how to live these things, it just gives them some words. There was no real rollout of the experience maps. Everybody got an email, we were supposed to kind of walk through them, everybody was supposed to figure out how to use them in their everyday, and it just really didn't happen. And by looking through all of these, we noticed that the experiences were really just job descriptions. So you're looking at a lot of these bullets, and they're explaining to you what you should be doing on a daily basis anyway, and not really giving you a roadmap for the experiences that you should be having to advance, or the things that might be missing from your career to kind of let you take those steps to find the experiences. And so, we are proposing new values-based experience maps. Yes. We have a handout for you. We have now mapped all of our experiences by value, by level. So what does it mean to be fearless, real, on, and great at the senior executive level, all the way down to our junior employees? These take into account all of the hard work that has been done to put together the experience maps in the first place by taking a lot of those experiences, or charges, and turning them into real experiences. And what this does is it really gives everybody foresight into what should be happening within their craft. So for performance, which is the example that you have in front of you, our junior level folks are given insight into what should be happening to be fearless at a senior executive level. It allows them to be aspirational. It allows them to see kind of what this role could be and how high the ceiling is. But it also helps them keep that upper leadership accountable for how they should be functioning in those higher roles. We can also use this as a tool for our junior employees so that our senior folks, when they're having goals discussions, when we're doing performance evaluations, to find goals that we can set, experiences, how can we put this on your roadmap as an employee? So these can be a really valuable tool if we use them right and we roll them out in a way that really sticks to the core of what our values are. So we talked to you a lot. We want to recap. We want to level set. Please put the experience maps down. I know they're beautiful. Please put them down. Okay, so we walked through how we are going to empower our teams to redefine our values. And we're doing that through a 3-step process that involves a senior executive kickoff, in which all of our senior execs are in a room talking about the framework that we just put forward and how we can implement it. We have our second phase kickoff, which should include all of our senior execs telling our VPs and directors exactly what this vision is and how they're charged with carrying culture through. And then we have our junior folks in a room sitting there listening to those leaders, customize that message and tell them what it looks like at their level. We're rethinking our all-hands meetings and our leadership access by reformatting what the all-hands looks like to make sure that it incorporates all of our locations. It puts everybody on the same page. We've got evolving our values-based reward system. So we are proposing our quarterly frog awards, and we are also proposing our biannual happy hours to really reward our employees on a more frequent basis, and updating how our roles represent our values with the new experience maps. Now, you may be asking what is in it for you. How does this actually play out? These ideas are great, the tactics are great. What will it do? And we will tell you, because we think that our solutions, we don't think, we believe, and we know, that our solutions will reverse the downtrend. So we have mapped our future state by everything that we are planning to kind of implement and roll out in Q4 of this year. So we have our kickoffs happening in October. We've got ongoing reward happening on a quarterly basis. We've got our biannual happy hours. We've got our quarterly frog awards. And at the end of the year, you've heard so much about the values that you have no problem talking about your experience with your manager because you know exactly how to talk about it and how you provide value to this organization by living those values. We also took a look at our competitive base. We took a look at those Glassdoor ratings, and we're really on par with where a lot of our competition is in terms of employee sentiment, but our approach will boost where Reprise is above the competition, because we want our employees not only to feel happy while they're here, but leave Reprise feeling positive about their experience and knowing that it has made them better. We also have a breakdown of our budget, which we will pass out so that everybody has that and can review at a later date. This is how everything shakes out. So we've got our kickoffs happening October, November of this year. We've got our new all-hands format rolling out in December, as well as our quarterly frog awards and our values-based experience maps, as well as some swag that we'll give out at our new all-hands. And then on an ongoing basis, we've got all of our all-hands happening monthly, leadership AMAs happening monthly, the quarterly frog awards, biannual happy hours, and more swag on our birthday. And that is all that we have for you today. So we would like to open the floor to your feedback and questions.
Well, again, thank you. That was probably one of the nicest designed acts. I'm like, wow, that's a good design. We could take that into the pitch room. Well, really, some like a really wonderful framework and some really smart thinking. I'll kick it off with a question. There's a lot of budget in a biannual happy hour. I mean, 2/3 of the budget. Obviously, we want to also be able to kind of, tap into sort of experiences for our people on an ongoing basis. Are there other tactical things that you thought, do you feel like there's a lot to kind of lump into one type of event? Are there sort of other sort of tactical things that you think might kind of sort of move into some of these pillars, like some philanthropic efforts or speaker series and other things that we might be able to do to show, sort of showcase some of these values?
Yeah, I'll start off. Honestly, when we sat down, we looked at the ideas that we had for how do you embody culture, how do you disseminate culture in an organization that does do things like pretty well. We came up with a framework, and our framework is free. And so we really kind of got stuck on that. We were like, look, like the things that we are really concerned about, the feedback that we got from 72 interviews was that we need a framework. We need some responsibilities, we need some accountability, we need to know who I can go to for certain things, but all of that doesn't cost anything. And so we did. We landed on a biannual happy hour because we did hear some people have summer parties and other organizations do kind of events during seasons that are a little slower that bring up the morale and boost it for the time being. So that's kind of the direction we went in because we really did believe that most of our value